You are listening to NDPR. What is up, my Nancy nerds? Man, it has been a very, very long time. I've been extremely busy, which, as per usual, is not a bad thing. I've been very productive, lots and lots of music, so I figured why stop and focus on the podcast if I'm feeling it. So that's what I did, is just kept going. So I've been trying to keep everything current, keeping you guys updated on what I'm currently working on, and I am very much behind. So today we're going to talk about IMMI, finally. I've been putting it off for other reasons as well. One being I knew that it was going to be quite the task to explain where this album came from, what inspired it. It's a bit of everything, so bear with me. I'm probably going to have to edit the hell out of this because I'm going to be probably rambling at times, but IMMI is a special little piece. 9 tracks that I didn't really have planned. One day I was changing my strings on my classical here that I've had since, I don't know, I must have been 17, maybe older, anywhere between 17 and 19 years old. My guitar was stolen out of my friend's Jeep. We played a show, and then we were smoking weed and hanging out, and left our guitars in his Jeep outside of the venue, Comma Coffee here in town. And we went back, and both of our guitars were gone. So that was devastating, to say the least. I was kind of couch surfing at the time, and that guitar was one of the only things that I owned. So yeah, that sucked. So anyway, long story short, my buddy Mark Mercado, fantastic rapper, by the way, one of the best freestylists I've ever met. Don't know where you're at, Mark, but if you happen to see this, what up? Mark's a trip, man. I've always run into him at the most random times in my life. The most random being I was in Norway in 2014 and was posting photos and stuff, and he just reached out to me. I never know where Mark is. Like, nobody ever knows where Mark is. He's everywhere all at once. I was posting pictures of my trip in Norway, and I just got this message from him. We hadn't talked in years. And he's like, "Yo, man, you're in Oslo?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude, it's crazy." And he's like, "Me too." I was like, "What the fuck? What are you doing in Oslo?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just chilling out here right now." I was like, "Okay." So we didn't end up meeting up. But anyway, that's a little backstory on Mark. Mark Mercado is, he's a conundrum, man. I've never met anyone like him. But anyway, he had this little, pretty much child's guitar at his mom's house, and he was like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, absolutely." So he gave it to me, and it's not the greatest. It's made by Lotus, but it's all I had for the longest time. Done some of my most like intimate writing on it, still to this day, obviously. Never gonna get rid of this little guy. So his name's Amigo. He's an Amigo made by Lotus. One day I was changing the strings, and I got strings I don't usually get. Has a little piece that kind of sticks off, and I was just messing around with it, and it had this really like nice click to it. This is on voice cancellation, or voice isolation, so you probably can't hear it, but it had a nice click, and I was just like, "Oh, I'm going to use that for percussion at some point. I'm not going to trim it." So IMMI began with this song that just started with that click, and you'll hear it on the song is called Latigos, which was just, sounds cool, but it's just a mixture of Lotus and Amigo. So Latigos started with that click, and I just went heavy on the percussion, and I had this very simplistic riff that I wrote on this guitar, and that song is basically all on that. I'm hitting the body of it, I'm using it for percussion, I'm using it for the bass line, I'm using it for everything. So it turned out really, really cool, and like I said, I hadn't planned this album at all. I didn't know what the sound was going to be like, what my approach was going to be, nothing, but I rolled with that song. I think I finished it in like that day, probably in about 8 hours. And IMMI was born. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew that I liked that kind of like a tribal pop, I guess. Heavily inspired by kind of like what Aurora does. Very poppy, synthy, but tribal all at the same time with an organic feeling. Even the electronics feel organic. And so that was that. As you probably know by now, I like to kind of go with the titles first. So I was like, well, what's this album going to be called? Because that gives me an idea of where I'm going to go, and it really helps me in the writing process afterwards. So I'd wanted to use IMMI, IMMI, as a song title or whatever. I had it written down in my notebook for different ideas for song titles and album titles. And IMMI is based on, if I had to choose my favorite, most influential artist, it would have to be Imogen Heap. And I mean, she's just indescribably talented and so catchy and yet weird, really poppy, but so experimental, passionate as hell. She just loves what she does and is never looking for the easy route. She's never looking for, synth settings that you expect to hear. She's got all this equipment and yet still finds a way to go around her house and start banging on things in the kitchen and light fixtures. And, she's just wild. She's so experimental. And between her and Gautier, that's what they do is it's what I aim to do now that I know that I'm aiming for a certain sound, but also it kind of happened organically for me where I started this project and it was like afterwards where I was like, oh shit, I'm kind of doing that. And so anyway, IMMI is just the cutest little short version of Imogen. And I like how it looks on the page when it's all caps, IMMI, almost looks like Roman numerals. And so I was like, all right, this is the one. This is IMMI. And it starts with Latigos. The Latigos was a great starting point, and from there on out, I just it just flowed. I knew exactly at least what the first few tracks were going to sound like, and I had a few guitar riffs that I had recorded on my phone and was like, I hope this is enough to base an entire song off of. And I kind of separated them, and it's a long process. I won't go into it, but I wanted to start using these weird array of homemade instruments and stuff. I've got like bundles of sticks and pistachio shells and, all sorts of weird shit for percussion. So I ran with that, and Latigos it's one of the few times that, like, I'm always kind of grooving when I'm recording. I'm like, oh damn, this is good, but Latigos, once I made a little digital beat for the end, I was grooving. I was like almost headbanging as I was recording it. And that's when I knew I got a winner here. So I knew opening track, here we go. So let's move on to Guga. Guga was this very simple riff written once again on my Amigo here. And I wanted it to be short. So I kept it really short and simple. I used a kazoo. I used some random shit on that one, but with a title like Guga, That's what you need to do. Just weird and short, little repetitive, but keep the beat groovy so people aren't losing interest, which I always worry about. And yeah, so Guga. So I knew that I had done some pretty obscure shit and very experimental that might not be for everybody. And I myself am a very big fan of pop music. Like, it has to be good pop music, but when you find a good pop artist, it's just infectious. You know, like an Imogen Heap, like Aurora, like the 1975. I like some poppy shit, and so I thought, well, let's take Nancy further down the pop, more accessible. Make this album to where it kind of applies to everyone. Everyone will have something to not have to think too hard about and just kind of groove. So that was the idea. And I think I accomplished that. It's had a lot of really good feedback. And that was when I really started seeing my plays go up, was with this album. This was released in June, which feels like longer ago, but it also feels like yesterday. Time is bizarre. Yeah, so I wanted to do this like right after I finished when everything was fresh. So you gotta, once again, bear with me. I'm like, gotta get back into that headspace because I've worked on quite a few things since then. Yeah, so Guga was fun. Very chill. And then I had this very Spanish sounding riff that I had written on my other acoustic Baby Brown over there. I love Spanish music. Absolutely love it. And it's always hard as a white ginger kid to show my respects for ethnic music without coming across like Three Amigos or some shit. You know, like, I don't want to be insulting. I want to show that I'm inspired by that genre, whatever that genre may be, but also respectfully do it from a distance, do it from, you know, make it my style as well, where it's not like, check out my Spanish song, you know. I feel like I've always kind of done that ever since I started Nancy Plays Nurse, and started, you know, the Amigo really brought that out of me, which, you know, it's the nylon strings and the classical flamenco style shit. I just love listening to that kind of music and want to pay homage. So one of the funniest things that I used on this next one, which was Chula Corazon, which is cute heart, pretty much inspired by a girl I was seeing for a little bit. Shout out Jennifer, love you, girl. We're still on very good terms, really good friends. But I learned a lot about her culture and stuff, becoming friends and then dating for a short bit. But she's one of the most beautiful inside and out people I've ever met, and wanted to pay homage and used her as the single cover. And yeah, she's just the best. Inspired the vibe. So Chula Corazon has some fun shit that I used for percussion as well. I used like opening carbonated water, a can, and then I used I trimmed a bunch of branches, like fresh branches off a bush outside that needed trimming, and used that as percussion in the beginning. So you just hear like a bunch of bushy leaves, like fresh leaves. If you didn't know, you would never guess, but you're hearing a bush that I brought inside. So that's fun. But yeah, that song starts out really mellow, and I used my oh, I've got it right here. This pistachio thing that you can shake and it rattles, but also these are all nailed down, and you can just kind of like, you know, strike it with something, and it's like one of those frogs. You know. Sounds cool. So I used that in the beginning, and then I wanted this really like almost dubstep-y beat to come in, kind of like catch you off guard, and really deep bass, synth bass. So I personally love that track, especially the intro. But then it gets really cool. It gets really dancey, and then I get really, really Spanish with it, with dueling guitars, and the bass line is borderline mariachi. And then some like Daft Punk kind of synth comes in. So anyway, That track is where I really realized where the album was going. Like, once again, no limitations. Like, keep it within the confines of working as a whole album together. But as I always say, I have to like remind myself it'll be fine to give each individual track its own personality entirely. After the first two tracks of an album are done, you're feeling really solid. But then you get the nerves of like, that third one comes around, and that's like really the defining track of, are you going to be able to keep that magic of the first two? And the first two are very repetitive. They build and build, and then they kind of die down, and then they build again. But they're very simple and safe. And that's one thing I try to avoid is I don't want my music to sound too safe. I know it's weird, but it's true. I don't want the listener to get bored, and I don't want to come across as lazy. So that's a good and a bad thing. Chula Corazon, fantastic track. Hope you guys like that one. Which brings us to track 4, which is Images Leap, which obviously is a play on Imogen Heap's name. Kind of inspired also by just when you look at your Instagram posts or Facebook memories or a physical photo album, the images leap off the page. So cheesy as hell, but I'm cheesy, and it's my pop album, so fuck it. But I really, really wanted to go hard with showing my utmost respect and reverence to Imogen Heap as an artist, and borderline cover her style shamelessly. It's still extremely Nancy's Dead, but I wanted to be like, yeah, this is my Imogen Heap song, so no shame. But I wrote some lyrics and sang throughout. That was incredibly difficult because I'm so rusty when it comes to vocals. Instrumentally, I'm getting better every day, but I don't really sing much anymore. And the lyrics are very simple, but I wanted to tell the short story of what it was inspired by. The line is, I'll just tell the story. So we were at my friend's house, and we're all like kind of day drinking, smoking, and having a really good day. And Imogen's album "Speak for Yourself" had just come out, and I was listening to it nonstop at the time. Masterpiece. Just had its 20th anniversary a couple days ago. Fantastic album. So I guess this is actually perfect timing to do this podcast. That's kind of cool. Not planned at all. So we had all these friends over, and Imogen wasn't really known back then. Like, people had heard Hide and Seek from the OC and stuff like that, and Let Go from the Garden State soundtrack. That was really big, but no one really knew that was also Imogen Heap. They just knew it was Frou Frou, which is Imogen Heap's side project. And that was how I actually figured out who Imogen was I heard Hide and Seek. I had already purchased the Frou Frou album, listened to it nonstop. And I heard Hide and Seek on MySpace. It floored me. I mean, just floored me. It's one of the most beautiful songs ever written in the history of mankind. But I sat there and was like, I recognize that voice. I think I know that voice. It sounds like fucking Frou Frou. So, of course, I go grab my CD, the insert, and looked, and it was like Imogen Heap. And I was like, oh, shit, she's got other stuff. So that was how I found Imogen, and never looked back. So we're at this party at the house, and one of my more just outrageous friends, he's so much fun. I won't name drop him just for the hell of it, but love him to death. And he's so expressive and loud and colorful. Wonderful, wonderful human. And he's sitting on the love sack, this big beanbag chair in the middle of the room. And like I said, we were all smoking and stuff. And so we're in very good moods. And I put on Speak for Yourself. Headlock starts, as we all know the album. And now the rest of the world knows too. What a fucking banger Headlock is. So Headlock starts, and I'll never forget. I just hear my friend scream, just no words, just just screams at the top of his lungs. And we're all like, "Oh shit, what? You okay? You okay, dude?" And he goes, "What is this?" And we were like, "This is Imogen Heap, man." And he was like, "What the fuck?" He was just screaming, just like in absolute heaven. And that always expressed how I felt inside my soul the first time I heard her. So I decided to write some lyrics that were kind of based around that experience. So the first line is uh, a scream from the armchair. What the actual fuck is this? Because I've never known a voice or a song like this. So that's the first line. And that's all based on his reaction. So the lyrics start there. And then, like I said, very simple lyrics, but I've always been kind of let down when I see the plays on my music, and I was in kind of a snippy mood, and so I decided to write about like, well, no one's listening to my songs, but I'm going to keep going anyway. And so the rest of the song is kind of just being like, well, you can either listen to it or not. I don't fucking care. So it's not angry. It's not an angry song, but it's definitely fed up. But also saying that it's fine. It's fine. You guys don't have to listen to it, which you don't. You don't even have to be watching this bullshit right now. So it's all good. I'm just talking to myself in my room like a fucking weirdo. So anyway, that's Images Leap. Very cool track. It was a pain in my ass. That was nonstop working on that one song for a good 5 days, 4 or 5 days. Uh, I almost gave up on it. Almost started from scratch multiple times. I almost decided to just take out vocals entirely. Um, and from the feedback I've received, that would have been a bad idea. So thank you guys for uh, reassuring me that it was worth the work. Because fuck, that was a pain. But yeah, Images Leap. Hope you guys like it. The next track also based around that time, inspired about that time. You know, that story of my friend kind of brought up more memories from that era. And so the picture you'll see on the single for the next track is probably the most tight knit group of friends I've ever had or ever will have in my life during what I consider to be probably the most prolific year of my life, 2006. So the song is titled '06, and no lyrics, but I wanted to tell a story with the instrumentation, and it's just got kind of this like cheery, nostalgic build. I kind of wanted to go from, I don't know, something acousticy to using some of that tribal. I was using like my bodhrán here, this Irish drum, and xylophone, my wooden xylophone and stuff. And I wanted to build into an almost M83 kind of ending. It's nowhere near as anthemic or big as M83 is, but they have an actual band, so cut me some slack. But M83 is, they've got this sound that just kind of brings the nostalgia out of you. You know, it's 80s synth with a modern twist. Like, I don't know. There's a reason that they had such a explosion of popularity for movie trailers and commercials that are trying to get you to buy a car and explore the world and shit. They were kind of like almost like a Sigur Rós vibe for a while. You were just hearing M83 and like every movie trailer and stuff. So I wanted the ending to kind of build into that. But I have asked my friends who are featured on this single cover what they thought about it, and they said it did bring them back. So that's kind of cool that I was able to accomplish bringing back some nostalgia from '06 for the people that were actually there. That's pretty cool. So '06 is fun. I like it. I enjoy it. That brings us to Sleepy Tongue, which Sleepy Tongue, the title was inspired. It's so funny. My cat was sleeping on the couch, and I'm sure if you have cats, you know that if they're really, really zonked out, like they're sleeping heavily, sometimes their little tongues like get stuck and they're just snoring or whatever they do, but their little tongues sticking out as they're sleeping. So I was just petting him as he's napping and said, "Oh, Sleepy Tongue." And that was that. So I was like, well, that's a song title or something. I don't know. So I wrote it down. And I also kind of wanted it to have some vibe of like, I like pop music that has a dark undertones and stuff. Hence the Cure shirt I'm wearing and shit. You know, pop that has, it doesn't have to be like dark, you know, or like even gothic or anything. A bit of sadness, a bit of realism, where you're not just forcing a happy mood. I like poppy music that is like, we're trying to be happy, but everything does suck and we're not going to sugarcoat it. I do like really like straight pop too. Like I'll listen to some Owl City. I don't give a fuck. But like, for the most part, I wanted to have some darkness. So Sleepy Tongue was all written based on a riff that I had written on my steel tongue drum, and which is right back here, sitting right there in the case. But the steel tongue drum has such a unique sound, and I like using it for not Zen things, like, you know, what it's typically used for, like relaxation. It naturally has that, but I like using it in ways that you wouldn't expect. So anyway, wrote it on that, and then didn't know where I was going with it, but then I've just found this awesome setting for borderline, you know, trip hop dubstep. And so I played a beat and it was just like shockingly heavy. So you've got this really pretty kind of Zen frequency from the drum, and then glitchy, like heavy bass over it. And really, really happy with how that one turned out. It was a total accident. I didn't think that riff was ever going to be used. And I just built off it. I was using like soup cans and all sorts of weird shit. But yeah, that one turned out really cool. It's really straightforward and easy to listen to. I know it was one that my mom told me and was like, she's like, I can't stop playing that track. You usually don't do beats like that. I was like, yeah, I know. So hope you like Sleepy Tongue. That's a cool one. It's a vibe. Speaking of vibe, Blam. That's the next track is Blam. And that was inspired by, you'll see here, I used to have a sketch pad that I would leave out on the coffee table when we had people over and stuff. Everyone just grab a pen randomly and kind of sketch in it. So one day I looked in there years later, and there was just that blam with the writing and the explosion. And I didn't draw it. And I've asked around all my friends to this day, no idea who did that kind of cartoon, you know, old Batman and Robin kind of blam. So I ended up drawing two fish for whatever reason. One fish kind of smacking the other fish in the face, and it's like, blam. I don't fucking know. And that just laid dormant in a notebook for a long time. And I found it again in June and was like, I'm going to use this for a cover. So the song started out as like, it's going to be really cheery with a title like Blam with the exclamation point and everything. It's got to be kind of like almost like a joke track, which it started out as, and it steadily morphed into something much deeper. But I wrote some riffs on my Amigo here, and it was sounding really beachy. Not like full-blown Jack Johnson or anything, but close. So I went with that vibe, and I played some live drums on it using some brushes instead of sticks, and yeah, it was just like, okay, we'll start here, kind of bouncy, happy, 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 really, really happy. And then I had the idea to have it kind of represent the changing of a long-term relationship slowly going sour. And then blam, it's over. Or even when it doesn't gradually, when it's going really well, and then all of a sudden, blam, they're not really in love with you anymore, and you can tell. So the song starts out really beachy, as I said, this bouncy bass line, and it's some harmonica that I played, and just very, very happy, like kind of representing the early stages of a relationship where you're kind of naive and ignorant and just like, this love's gonna last forever, yay! And slowly but surely I had it kind of like morph into this darker riff that I had also written on the Amigo, same key, and same timing, but much more sad. And I found a recording of an underwater explosion to use right before this big electronic beat comes in at the end, and you can tell there's a bit of anger in there. It's mainly sad, but there's some anger, like, what the fuck, what happened? I know we've all been there at some point. So to anyone not knowing the backstory about it is probably like, this is a weird fucking song, but once you know what I was going for, it makes more sense. But yeah, so that's Blam, and now you know. It's a journey. It's a cool track, and I think it was good to get a little bit of last bits and pieces of lingering animosity and sadness that I was still feeling about my last relationship and stuff. So yeah, kind of an important track to me. It felt good to get it out. And I thought the album was pretty much done. I was going to just have it eight tracks, but my friend Michael was staying with me, and he had just got a stylophone in the mail, and it's an old, I think it was in the late 70s, and it's like a pocket-sized synthesizer. It makes just some like zany electronic sounds. Very cool, but in the wrong hands could be extremely annoying. Don't buy one for your kids. I will definitely advise against that. But give it to a musician, they'll find some cool shit to do with it. But anyway, he hadn't played it, and I always give him shit for not using all of these fantastic instruments that he owns. And I was like, well, he went off to do, like, run some errands or something. And I was like, I'm going to use that fucking thing. So he left. I busted it out, put my batteries in it. So I was using my own power. And I quickly was like, I got to record this while he's gone, and wrote a little thingy. But yeah, once again, this was on Resi, my steel tongue drum, and just busted out. It's like a 2.5 minute long track. Have it like a unexpected hip hop beat, and I also used my kalimba prongs, which I'll show you. I have some contact microphones that I was itching to use too. Yeah, prongs, little kalimba. Love this thing. But yeah, that and my steel tongue drum, and I just busted out this weird hip hop style. Once again, going back to that tribal pop thing that I was talking about, but it turned out really cool, and I wanted a clip in it somehow, and I found a recording on my phone that had accidentally started in my pocket. I was at the self-checkout, and you could hear it saying, like, put your number in, put your card in, and scan your card, that kind of shit. So I used that, threw that clip in there. So that's a fun little calm before the beautiful storm afterwards. But that's a rapacity, which means being satisfied after a meal in old-timey talk. I was reading Swiss Family Robinson at the time, and there were a lot of old-timey words in there. Awful fucking book. That's worth its own podcast, how bad that book is. Anyway, yeah, rapacity. Good stuff. And I had started working on the last track and knew it was going to be a doozy. I didn't know how big of a doozy it was actually going to be. I wrote a poem after my divorce in 2011, drinking heavily, Sailor Jerry every night, that kind of shit. And it was just extremely emo, very like not all my romance had left my body yet. So I was still very romantic and wanting that forever love bullshit. And I came up with this idea without even thinking about it of just a story of two flames that uh, fell in love in a forest. And the male flame is kind of a playboy and doesn't want to stick around with this other flame, um, the girl flame, because he thinks he can do better or whatever the fuck guys think when they're young. It was kind of a expression of me when I was about 17, 18. Went through kind of a slutty phase, but it was short lived. So that's good. But yeah, so just wrote this poem and it never saw the light of day. It just kind of sat in a notebook for a very, very long time. And I always like had it in mind to eventually use it for maybe a stop animation film or a children's book, or I don't know, that would be illustrated and something, but nothing ever fit right. And so I decided, well, what if I write some music and then have someone read it over the music? And it'll be a short song, you know. It was not a short song. It's about 5.5 minutes long, but it went from having one person read it to I had an idea to ask 8 different people that I knew if they'd be interested in reading it. And I thought at first, like giving each one a line, I don't know, but then I thought I'm just going to have them read it in its entirety and I'll edit it later and see who reads what, which way. And um, they all came through. I was a little bitch about it because I was itching to put it all together. I knew it was going to be a lot of work once I got all the recordings. And so I was giving them a hard time, like, come on, you guys, like, album's almost done. I want to get this track finished. And they all finally came through, every last one of them. And they all read it. They asked me, like, do you want me to read it a certain way? I don't know where it's going in the song. And I said, just read it with nothing else in mind. Read it how you want to read it. So everyone came back. They recorded it on their phones. My dad called my phone and left a voicemail. So I was able to use that. So it's got a cool sound for his completely different voice. But it turned out so freaking cool. So I want to give a shout out to all the people involved. My mom, my dad, Michael, Natasha, Chris, Paige, Carson, Daniel. Um, it turned out so fucking cool. It's so sick. So they all read it in different ways, and I spent quite a few hours. It was weird because it felt like I was like a director, like a casting director, having to like pick people for different parts and like cutting people's lines and stuff. It was very hard because everyone did such a good job, and especially the women. No offense, guys, but the girls just killed it. They just fucking murdered it. And yeah, so they all read this poem that I wrote, and it was crazy to hear it come to life. Uh, and then I kind of had this build Sigaros. I like to say Sigaros meets Postal Service at the end. And yeah, so it's pretty powerful. I had a song I wrote back when I was, I don't know, 17, 16 or 17, called The War. It's a really pretty song that it's heartbreaking. Uh, I got a lot of attention with that song. I wrote lyrics that were beyond my ears, if I do say so myself. Really beautiful story, tragic story about lovers that um, get separated by him having to be drafted and dying in the war. And because they were so in love, they kind of like telepathically die at the same time. Anyway, really pretty song that I'll probably eventually do in its entirety. But I use that chord progression, rip myself off, no shame. I wrote the fucking song, so it's fine. So I used that and used a line to finish out the song at the end with a little bit of singing from me. So it's just got all these voices speaking about love, and yeah, it turned out just fucking great. So once again, thank you so much to all you guys that put up with me and recorded yourselves reading my silly poem.
Once there was a fire.
Once there was a fire. All he wanted was to burn.
He came across another
and chose to give her a turn. Together they shone brightly. All witness to their love.
But the first flame,
He got edgy, thought himself
Brighter
brighter.
on his own.
brighter on his own.
He moved quickly through the forest, sending sparks to all in reach.
Yet no fire that he started burned bright enough to be seen. He found himself
he found
thinking.
himself thinking only of that first flame.
He wondered.
He wondered
and he
and
wondered, and he
Would she ever
wondered,
take him back
would she
again?
ever take him back
He sent
again?
up sparks.
Sent up sparks, a signal. He prayed that she would see.
She would see.
At last she came across his path.
He knew.
Forever they
Forever they would be.
Wherever they would be.
Forever they would be.
But as it is,
with everything. The forest end.
The forest's end drew near.
A
Stormy beach with crashing waves
Left nowhere else to steer.
They arrived at water's edge.
all form of wood was damp.
Their bodies changed to something else.
They couldn't understand.
As they began to separate,
Morphing into steam.
With the final flicker of their flame,
Both knew
they had to leave.
yet it was clear
as they rose
Conjoining with the clouds.
that even as destruction grows,
real love.
real love abounds.
Real love abounds.
You guys killed it, man. It shines. I mean, I'm just backing you guys up, so thank you for that. And I hope the rest of you enjoy listening to it. It's very different from anything else I've ever done, and it's very difficult, but I think it paid off. So hope you guys like it. And yeah, that's the track listing. I wanted to talk about the cover art for IMMI. That was taken by myself while we were in Sweden and Norway. I think we were in Sweden for this one at a Viking burial ground. But that's my ex-girlfriend, Lauren. Shout out, Lauren. What's up, girl? And I got down low. She was jogging up this huge grassy mound that was a Viking burial ground. And I thought it was cool with the overcast sky and stuff. And yeah, it's a cool photo. And sorry, Lauren, but you're now on 3 of my covers, so deal with it. I hope you guys enjoy the music that I have made on this piece of work. It was a lot of fun, a lot of sleepless nights, and I think it comes through. It's got this very organic feeling to it. Plenty of electronics in there, but the majority was written on my buddy here, my amigo. And so it's just got a very intimate, earthy vibe. And I'd have to say that the cover art inspired a lot of that. So this way of writing with the art first and the title first and then the music later is working wonders. So I'm going to keep doing it. And I've got many more to talk about that I have finished since this album, but I had to get IMMI out there. And it really is crazy that I'm doing this right after Imogen releases her remastered 20th anniversary edition of Speak for Yourself. So good timing. But Imogen, you're never going to see this, but I love you. I love you like crazy. This album really took off. It really was like, it gained traction quickly. And I was doing a little bit more advertising for it, reaching out to friends, sending it directly to people and stuff. And that worked. So I've been doing that since with my other releases. But yeah, this one, I started getting strangers hit me up about it and stuff, and close friends, and acquaintances that I'm not close with, but they felt the need to reach out and tell me, hey, this one's good. And that was my hope when I first started writing it, and it came to fruition. So thank you all. Thank you so much. Please hit like, subscribe. IMMI is available on all platforms. And if you are feeling generous, hate to be that guy, but Bandcamp gives you the option to name your price, $2, $1, $20, whatever you want to do. Anything helps. I want to get merch. I want to do merch soon. So, if you guys want merch, sending a few bucks would really be cool. That'd be sick. So Bandcamp is where it's at. And that's where you can see all this single art and stuff too. Love Spotify, love all the other places, but Bandcamp is the most intimate and artist friendly. It really lets us have a voice and gives us space to describe the writing process and what inspired us and stuff like that. So Bandcamp is really, really a wonderful way to get your music out there. And yeah, if you guys have a favorite track, let me know. I love feedback. If there's anything that you think I can do better production wise, or, you know, I want to hear more of this style, or maybe less of that, you know, I'm open to anything. I love constructive criticism and praise. I like that too. Like anyone. So yeah, thanks again. And until next time, Nancy's Dead Public Radio, Nancy Nerds. Love you guys.